Welcome. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, July 27th, 2021 Open Space Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation Committee meeting, the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, July 27th at 6 p.m. With that being said, I am looking for an approval of the minutes of our prior meeting.
I'd like to call a motion to approve the minutes from the Open Space Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation Subcommittee meeting of June 22nd, 2021.
All in favor?
No
I'll
one
second.
here to second.
I'll second. Any discussion? No. All in favor? Aye. Minutes pass. It's going to be a slow meeting and probably an early meeting tonight. We're in between steps and phases out at the farm. Is there public comment tonight from the general public? Public is allowed 2 minutes at the podium after they read in. I think everybody is at the concert tonight. Telesano concert series up at Elmridge Park. In any event, is there any comment from the public tonight? Seeing none, hearing none, we will move on to our item 4, discussion. Section B, status and next steps. So Section B is Section A has been cleared and cleaned and is being farmed currently by 3 farmers in town. Section B is the last phase, or the last parcel of land to get attention, and it's been cleared of the major debris, but Ray, you might want to fill us in a little bit about what's happening there currently.
Right. Right now, JV3 is finishing up the final pickup of the bulky waste that was there, the logs, the trees, the brush. Most of the vehicles, actually all the vehicles are gone. Just a little bit remains left. I probably will be finished by the end of next week, I'm sure.
So Ray, as they were scratching around, they were coming up with more stuff that was buried.
Yeah, what was happening was once they took all of the junk off the site, all of the vehicles off the site,
Hey, Chris.
they started to scrape the ground, and the more they scraped, the more things started popping up. Sort of like when you garden, you start plowing your field or hoeing. The more you rake, the more the rocks come up. That's what was happening. So JV3 will work on trying to minimize that.
The farmers, to some degree, have not come up with big debris in their fields that have needed additional removing, have they?
They at the very start of the season, they went through very carefully each field, and they did remove some miscellaneous pieces of metal and junk from the farm fields.
Yep.
They did do that.
And we don't have any reason to think that when we scratch around a little harder on Section B that we're going to come up with dinosaur tracks or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
However, just a point here that everything, the project timeline, the land use, everything, the land use plan, everything hinges on the remediation of the property, the cleanup of whatever contaminated soil is out there, the additional testing that needs to be done, and then the steps that need to be done to remediate any contaminants out there. Once that is finished, we can develop a land use plan, we can develop a site plan, a more formal site plan for the location of the barn, the parking area, the driveway, community gardens, even the bird sanctuary towers that you're going to mention in a couple of minutes.
Oh, right, that's going to be later in the discussion, but who makes the call on remediation? Is that a certification by an outside third party?
Yeah, that will have to be done by a licensed environmental professional. We currently have a contract and have had a contract with Zuvik out of Rocky Hill since September 2019. They performed all the phase 1 and phase 2 investigations, the additional testing. They they provided the opinion of cost estimates for the grant for each category. So we're hopeful to continue that contract into this remediation project, where we will wind up bidding out the actual remediation work, the construction work, the abatement of the house, you know, the hazard building material, the lead paint, the what little asbestos remain in the house, and also the demolition of the house will be bidding out. So we can do that concurrently, but first things first, we have to comply with a lot of the DECD requirements, the filing requirements, finalizing the financial plan, finalizing the assistance agreements. All that takes time. So that's what we're working on now. What I'm going to do right now is just pass out
Yep.
a project site plan that we utilized for the grant. It's very general. This was prepared by Steve Sokolak, our town engineer. And the first one is a very neat engineer plan. The second one shows some of the erosion and sedimentation control, some of the drainage that might be done. Again, the location is going to be dictated by the remediation. And a substantial portion of the remediation budget is engineering and site design provided for by Zuvik Engineering in consultation with our engineering department. So what you see is basically an access from the existing driveway down to the center of parcel B, which is really, I think, where the greenhouses might be. You know, when you walk down, you go down to the right. We're down in that low area, and you look towards the community gardens section.
Yep.
It's going to be right in that area, we hope. Of course, I attached the timeline to your agenda package. Again, this is a very preliminary timeline. We're not really sure how long it will take DECD to get the documents endorsed. So, 1 month, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. A few of these tasks may not be done. Some may be less in estimated cost than we have here right now.
So would there be any questions from Counselor Duff?
Yeah, and just to your point earlier, is this project under the same environmental regulations in terms of as another construction project would be in town? If we find dinosaur tracks, artifacts, that type of stuff, you have to
Yes.
stop and contain it.
Yeah, we already had to do a SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office sheet with the Bard project, and they came back saying there's nothing of significance there. However, if we do find dinosaur tracks or a dinosaur living somewhere on site, we'll have to stop the project and take care of that.
In terms of the overall project timeline, you mentioned some of these can be done concurrently, and the demo of the building seems like it can be done kind of at any point. Do we have any milestones where we would like to be, and I'm not sure that the public all has the ability to just see the sheet right now until the packet goes online, but is there any in broad strokes where we would like to be maybe through this year, and then where we'd like to pick up after things kind of dry out in the spring of next year?
Well, this spreadsheet kind of has like the wish where we'd like to be. Once we get approval, once we have the signed assistance agreements and the signed financial plan with the state DECD, and we put bid specs together for what we're going to be bidding out, and those bid specs are approved by DECD, they have to review everything. Then we hope that we could start in September. Here we have September 1 to 10/1, roughly a month it will take, according to Zuvik, to do these different tasks that we have listed here. But once we get approval, everything signed, and the bidding documents approved, we can actually start remediating the house while the remedial action plan is being developed for the remediation. Also, while the grading and planning and the site engineering design plans could be also concurrently being developed, while the remedial action plan is being developed and the house is being demolished. But again, you know, assuming everything gets approved by DECD, we're on track of submitting information to DECD. You know, the wish start would be September.
So, Chris, what I'm hearing, I don't know if you're hearing the same thing, is the remainder of this year is testing and all these engineering activities after, and then in next year, the early part of next year, all things being equal, going well, we'll see parcel B being graded.
Graded or soil removed and soil added, and yes.
And the remediation is the capping of the site, and once that's done, then we could see barn and parking lot and roadway. But that would come at the end of next year,
Yes, yes.
into the beginning of 2003. Any questions from?
Plus, the other thing is, we need the state approval so
As we
that we
go.
can get reimbursed for the expenses that you just talked about.
For each bill submitted.
So that's managing the cash from the state. It's going to be probably tougher than remediating the soil.
So the way that the grant we received we would have to pay it and then they reimburse us? It's not, I see, okay.
That's the impression we got when we
Oh, yeah.
had our preliminary announcement meeting.
All the brownfield, almost every state grant is a reimbursement grant.
Mhm.
So as every milestone gets completed, then we resubmit as it goes along through each of these milestones?
Probably there will be a various number of invoices within each milestone.
They'll probably have a formal budget, and off of that budget, we would request reimbursement for categories. So it wouldn't be a lot of categories, but we just have to seek reimbursement that way. I don't know how many, do we have to file quarterly, semi-annual reports on how we stand
Yes.
and so on, so.
With each invoice we request, we have to submit a cumulative report.
But we don't anticipate delays. We think we get prompt reimbursement. I think that we've been lucky with the state that way. Once you get all the paperwork done and things in line and file it the way they like it, we usually get the money back pretty quick, electronically, too.
Councilor Malero?
I think I have a question, but I'm trying to formulate it in my head here. So the timing of the cash flow available to the time of this being compensated, will that affect anything in the existing budget? Or is there any issues with that?
Well, a lot depends on the size. It just seems like the only one that would be difficult would be the remediation part, where it's like over $600,000, and I would assume that'd be in phases, so it shouldn't be too bad as long as it's not a big hit on us right away. But we should be able to cover, anything less than $100,000 without any concern. But if it creeps up where we have to front $627,000, then that would be a problem. But I don't view it that way, because I assume it would be through an application process on a monthly basis on how much work they got done that month. So,
Yeah, that big number is what made me think of that.
Yeah.
That's a big chunk to come up with up front.
yeah, we may have to play. I think we're known as prompt payers. We sort of establish an approval process with the contractors for all our projects. And if they follow that, they generally get paid within less than the 30-day since the submittal. So I think contractors like Rocky Hill. But if we have something like this very large, then it could be a cash flow problem where we may have to wait until we get our reimbursement to pay them. But we don't like to do it that way. But
Great. Go ahead.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
More of a project management question. This is great, putting this milestone plan together. I know it's gonna get more precise and baselined as we know more, but Do we track these risks identified separately somewhere as well? So that as we identify them, we can at least track the identification of the risk, but also maybe start thinking of mitigation or how we're mitigating them? Like, for example, just the topic around this cash flow component is an identified potential risk, but do we keep track of multiple risks or somewhere where we can present?
No.
Okay.
No, the project will be driven by our consultant, who will keep track of everything, risks.
Okay.
The whole project will be managed by, hopefully Zuvik, along with our finance department and our town engineer.
So if anything, any risks that come up that, like top 10 risks, we can bring them to the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to get at,
I'm-
just based on the complexity of this.
I just need to, maybe we can talk about what you mean by risks. You're talking project management language.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
My world.
All right. That's it for questions on A. On-farm overall land use plan process, I guess.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we were talking about, how will we be handling the overall planning? We need an overall, a macro view, a layout of the farm, the fields we know. A lot of talk about trails within the wooded areas. Parcel B, right, where the barn's gonna be, where the community garden should be, where some public spaces should be. And that really involves an overall land use planning, land use architecture, combination with maybe horticulturalist expertise to lay out the farm land use plan. We talked about how that should be driven by the subcommittee, of course, with back and forth to town council and the subcommittee.
I mean, I think we would be looking for, I think the committee would be looking for, knowing everybody on the committee, is a plan that has some of those preliminary things already built into it, but enough flexibility that the committee can manipulate uses within the guidelines, so, the area for public gardens should be an area for public gardens, but still leave up to committee to kind of finally situate it if we're not using the entire,
Yeah.
So fine tuning it would give maybe time for the committee and then, and through the committee, general public some opportunity to have input where the beehives would be if they were going to be, or if there's not going to be, where the bird tower is going to be, if, just to kind of allow for input, I guess. That would be a great way for us to give them something to shoot at, but, so that we could fine tune it.
That's how I envision the land use plan would be driven by this subcommittee. With your input, you pour over it. The planning agency, or whoever will be planning, whoever we get, will incorporate your comments and incorporate the
Get Chris
the
to drone
specialists.
the drone down the site for us, and
And then we also discussed who to contact, so I have a few emails out to two different faculty at UConn School of Horticulture and or Agriculture and Land Use, Landscape Architecture. Kip recommended we do that. So we'll see if we can get a land use plan done, hopefully free or very low cost, utilizing their resources, both horticultural resources and landscape architecture.
and for what time frame?
I don't know yet.
No, okay, yeah, right, you haven't talked to them, but
Um,
it sounds to me like something they ought to be able to do after several months.
We can, again, I don't think we can do anything until we know how the remediation is going to look.
So it might be contingent on this first round of
Because,
this year's testing.
there may be arsenic in areas where we thought we can put a barn. So we just need to know the final outcome of the remediation. Once we know that, we can overlay the land use plan. We can start that, definitely, if we have to follow like a semester schedule, like at UConn, we can probably start that right away and then tweak it as we go along, and we find out what's in the ground, what isn't. You know, we can, it could be variable.
Start
you said.
sharing it with the committee right away, and then let it tweak a phase or two, and then we start having input.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. I mean, I guess the first step is figuring out who's going to work with us and what does their demand schedule look like, and then how we could work around there, and you know what those risks might be if they do pop up. Because maybe someone at horticultural school can come up with a plan that gets us 80% of the way there with 20% unknowns. I don't think we really know until we have those conversations, but that would be definitely good to know, especially if it was something like, I mean, I'm not sure who from those schools will be working with us at UConn, but if it's a master's project or something like that, maybe they're doing work, you know, during one of the summers. Who knows? But I think it would be helpful just to have a sense of what does their timeline look like, and then try to be as flexible as we can, especially if it's going to be, like you mentioned, free or low cost. So. And
Can
maybe,
always hope.
yeah, maybe we can plan during the winter and try to, I mean, even if it's a sense of giving us the structure of when do we need to think about planting some of these things when we're looking at 2022, putting the you know the overall kind of framework together.
Counselor Malaro? Good. Item C.
Yeah, I had, Sandy Kelly had requested that we, if we at least discuss about naming of the farm and/or the barn, or both, or whatever. At the time, I wasn't aware of the ordinance that we have for the process. So I made copies for you guys to look at. I don't think I gave them to you. Maybe, John, you can maybe explain that, but I don't know much about it.
They established,
One page.
years ago, the town council established a process more for naming rooms and town buildings and so on, so that a group could recommend naming something after somebody or whatever, and then it would go to the town manager, bring it to the mayor, and the mayor would, if moved forward, would form a naming committee that would come back with a yay or nay or something that way, just to be quick, where I guess in this case here, they may be looking to rename the farm from the Stratska name, since they're no longer the owners, previous owners, of course, to something maybe tied into the name Rocky Hill and so on. But because it looks like this is a public facility, the farm, eventually, so it sort of falls under this naming process. So I wouldn't address the barn until the barn is built, but the land, if there is an interest, perhaps this committee could discuss it at the next meeting when you have full council, what would be a name. Generally, I think the rule of thumb is to be named after a person, that person has to be no longer with us. So you could use the generic Rocky Hill something, green space, we used that before. So I think that would be the process where this committee would recommend a naming, and then it would flow up to the council to follow this ordinance to determine if a committee is needed, or maybe the council can just approve the naming going forward. But that's sort of the naming process. It's to combat, you show up at a town council meeting and someone adds an item to the agenda to name something after somebody, and boom, it's a done deal. So.
Counselor Duff, anything on the naming?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. We walked through I think a similar process that was hopefully that was pretty painless when we determined the name of Mosier School. I do remember that. Just in terms of, I guess we're familiar with it a little bit in terms of naming the building. Is there anything in terms of naming a parcel of land that means we would have to update our records or the grant? I mean, is there anything like that it might create complications, or is that land actually recorded on is that name recorded on the deed to the land that the town now holds? Is there any sort of concerns there? I don't recall us having to rename a piece of land before.
I don't think the name is on the land records as opposed to more just the surveyor's information.
Town of Rocky Hill. And then-
On
I think
Rocky
it's like
Hill will be on the
changing-
deed, yeah.
It wasn't like changing Cape Canaveral to Cape Kennedy, where they did something that they had to switch back. So I wouldn't think so, but I'm not positive on that.
And we would just be going through, I guess, two exercises. One of them would be, in the near term, what do we call the site? And then, like you mentioned, when we actually have a barn in place on the site, then that would be a separate committee to name that building.
I believe we've already got a recommendation.
Yeah, not to be confused with the naming of the barn, this is a separate issue of naming of that barn that we hope ends up there if we complete all these steps. But that application is already in at the naming, from the town manager and at the naming committee, which is chaired right now by Jeffrey Levine.
Yeah. So we like to have that name so we can start getting our shirts and coats emblazed with the proper name.
Straw hats.
We got farm division down already. We just,
Color is dark green, shirts, cap. Okay.
Councilor Malaro?
No, no questions, pretty straightforward.
No question. All right.
Ray did include that letter. Did you want to discuss
Yeah.
the letter?
Yep.
That you received, Ed, I believe, relating to the chimney
Yeah.
sweep?
Email from Alicia.
Is that the name of the bird? Chimney sweep, swifts?
Chimney Swift. You have a copy of the email attached to your package.
Yep.
It's something to consider, in the whole realm of what we have to do with the property. Sandy
Could be a
Kelly
good-
indicated to me that she thought it would be a good idea also. And I think also she includes bats too, correct? In her email? No. I guess the bats were Sandy Kelly's idea. She thought maybe some bat houses also. on the
Bat
property.
houses? No to bees, yes to possible birds and bats.
Well, maybe an option, Ray, keep it in your back of your mind when a Eagle Scout comes up for a project. You could give them the chimney swifts
Chimney Swift Tower.
tower. Good-sized tower, that cape looks pretty tall.
Yeah, they're not small.
So that could be it, and then if you could find a place to put it on the farm during this period, if we do have somebody that wants to do it for his Eagle badge, if it qualifies. Hopefully it'll be a Red Sox fan.
Any questions?
Could probably incorporate or include the garden club also, since they're involved in supporting endangered birds.
So were they looking for an action for us in like now? They want to put one of these up now, or they want it to be incorporated in the overall plan? I said
think-
looking for a sense of the committee that we look favorable upon the chimney swifts.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, I'm sure Mrs. Cornelio is aware of the process, and I think she just wanted to let the committee know that there is this structure that is helping, save some of these endangered birds, and that the committee should consider maybe having a few of these on site at some point.
I think for the committee, it might be a long-term goal during the farm remediation process, but if we get a eager Boy Scout that they want to do something, we should probably encourage it and maybe help support them in the supplies and stuff needed to build. And then we can install it somewhere. We could form another committee to go out,
So
the SWIFT committee.
we would be maybe making a recommendation to council to support, if it comes up sooner, then really building on the site, but if it were to come up sooner than later, we're in support of bat housing or bird housing of the different types, but we know that probably bees are not, and I suppose earthworms might be in there as well. Isn't there?
Sure, don't give any ideas.
Earthworm farms? I don't know. But in other words, we're suggesting these ancillary categories that are associated with nature be allowed maybe as we go and not wait for site completion.
Yeah, I think if we have an opportunity for someone that wants to do it, maybe we should support that
I
decision.
think we're good
Well,
with
then we got a name, we could call it Swift's Farm.
We have
that. If
to,
it goes up first, yeah.
they have to move in first, too.
Farm Division.
So I agree. I think the idea is a great idea.
You could,
It's just the question of timing. I know that there's a critical path item on this milestone plan around remediation, and I think nothing can happen until that piece
Right.
is done. And then from there, but to incorporate this into the future plans, I think would be a good idea. The only, I hate to use the word risk all the time. Seems like it's my life, but with the pesticide thing, and I mean, I would assume that would affect more than just bees, but that's just a separate question later that we may have to tackle.
Yeah, I don't think if we don't allow pesticides, we won't have any farmers, I think.
So the only problem with the pesticides with bees is that it would end up in the honey, whereas with the birds, they're not producing a byproduct for us. Unless, of course, we don't want to set them up till they die because of the pesticides, but just to carry it full circle, I guess. But in any event, I would think they would help cross-pollinate the what's growing out there and what have you, so,
well, you can
I
make them
think
two posts as you drive in
yeah,
to the community gardens.
could be,
Then you'll
could
have
be,
a,
it could be.
A statue of a chimney swift.
Swift. So,
Maybe we'll change the Rocky Hill High School team from the Terriers to the Chimney Swifts.
so we're not voting for it, but we're giving I think we're collectively giving our tacit approval, go ahead to council to entertain those items, those ancillary items, because it looks like they can move ahead as soon as risk factor remediation is
Critical path item.
critical path item is met, and we're not doing anything out of good judgment, so, okay.
Just similar to some of the other conversations that we've had, sorry. I think we'll probably also just need to understand, when does that tower need to be in place for, if we're looking to attract them? Because I assume they're going to nest, and we probably missed the window for this year, so it might not even be a concern about, hopefully we'll be done through the
Yeah, they would have
remediation.
to come with a plan, yeah.
Yeah, so just when's the timing of the tower? Because we don't want to just put it up if we miss their season, then have to move it anyways down the road.
I would recommend when we get closer to that time, we ask Mrs. Cornelio and whoever she thinks should come in and talk to the subcommittee.
Inform us about the Chimney Swift.
Yep.
Now, how do you, are you recommending to the town council? Will you recommend in your report, or you want something in writing transmitted to them?
Yeah, I think it could just be like an FYI, that we brought aware of this endangered.
Aware that this could move
That,
up on the
yeah.
schedule, given that a Boy Scout or Girl Scout wants to do it for their project, for their Gold or Eagle Scout.
Yeah,
And the Girl Scout, it's the Gold Award.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think just a comment to council, not a resolution by this group, I don't think.
Yeah, it's,
We'll put it in our report.
I think they assigned Ray to do a white paper on the Chimney Swift.
Yeah, I'll do a draft white paper for you guys to look at. Critical path method.
I'll give
Can't
you more terms next time. I want to overwhelm you today.
Put it in MS Project.
Well, all right then. Motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn today's Open Space, Land Acquisition, Farmland Preservation Committee.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.
Nope.